Another year of Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. Another year of the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. It's it's what it is at this point.
Listen,
He
I'm
is
down. I'm down for it.
yeah.
I'm a big supporter of Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
I don't think this was his best season ever. I think everybody would agree. It was,
Yeah, oh
he
yeah.
didn't have the talent around him other than Kelsey. I will say Pacheco, really good season. Not talked about among some of the top running backs. The way he's able to just run downhill is among guys like Derrick Henry. I mean, it's not he's not that big guy, but the way he's just able to really make his way through the gaps. He reminds me of Le'Veon Bell a little bit during his prime, but without the kind of the step back that Le'Veon used to do, where he would just sit there
He's got more
and then go.
power too
Mm-hmm.
than
And probably
Le'Veon, which
speed,
is yeah, oh yeah. Yeah. Like
but
he's got like sneaky speed
mhm.
almost.
But
But
yeah, I mean, the Chiefs' defense has been they've been really good all year. Making sure they had Chris Jones back was huge because I don't think they'd be here if they didn't have Chris Jones. I mean, the amount of deflections he's had this season that have really been big for
yeah.
games. I mean, he had one I think it was either third or fourth down against the Ravens during the middle of the game that was huge.
Yep.
But the defense really has showed up this postseason, and they're going to need him to show up again in the Super Bowl.
It's crazy because I look, you can't over like anytime Patrick Mahomes is on the field, like you can't overlook Patrick Mahomes, but what this defense has done, and if Steve Spagnuolo doesn't win Assistant Coach of the Year, then the award is broken because he
Mm-hmm.
is unbelievable, and it's true, like exactly what you said. In a year where Mahomes probably played his worst football of his career, even though he's still was a
Unbelievable.
Pro Bowler and was,
Mhm.
Pro Bowl caliber quarterback. He didn't have a number one receiver because even Kelsey, for most of the year until the playoffs, wasn't really,
Mhm.
the Kelsey that we were all used to.
And you
So with
want to
all
talk about
those,
showing up in the playoffs too?
oh my
Kelsey has
God,
really
I
showed.
know.
I don't know if it's just a schematic change, but
Yeah.
Kelsey has been targeted. I mean, 11 targets and
Yeah.
11
11
catches
catches. Yeah.
in that AFC Championship game. I mean, unbelievable. Over 100 yards, touchdown in the Bills game.
Yep.
He had 2 touchdowns. I believe he had like 90 yards, something like that. Maybe he hit 100. He's
Yeah.
been unbelievable. But it was interesting to see during the year. They did not. It was so weird how they just didn't target him. I swear,
Yeah.
once the Taylor Swift stuff started, they just stopped targeting him for some reason.
You know what's
And maybe it
funny?
was because teams were double teaming him. I don't know.
I think what it was, and it's a very different circumstance, but it's almost you're gonna laugh at me for bringing it up, but it's kind of similar to what, in my opinion, to what happened with Stephon Diggs, because teams knew going into the season,
Mm-hmm.
Diggs is Josh Allen's number one target. Everybody knew going into the season Travis Kelsey is Patrick Mahomes' number one target, and I think there was a growing period for both teams during the mid to late stretch of the season where they
Mm-hmm.
were trying to figure out, okay, we know we have this guy, who else do we have? And I think credit to the Chiefs because not only were they able to figure out who else they had in, Rashid Rice and Isaiah Pacheco, like you mentioned, but they also were able to then continue to incorporate Kelsey into the game, which the Bills were not able to do with Stephon Diggs. So I think it was really interesting to see how, like, it was almost as soon as they got into the playoffs, they turned it on like that. But
Mm-hmm.
but like it was a lot of the same thing that we saw during the regular season still, because they would turn it on in the first half. I mean, like we saw in that Ravens game, the one we're talking about now,
Mm-hmm.
14 points in the first quarter and then 3 points the rest of the game.
Both teams honestly went just invisible in the second
Yeah.
half,
Yeah.
unable to score. I think maybe I'm wrong. Maybe 3 points were scored
Yep.
in the second half. Like I
Yeah.
think it was just a Justin Tucker field goal.
Yep.
Maybe because what did it go and have
It
14
was a
to 7?
it was 14-7
So maybe it
after
was six
yeah.
then. Six
Yep.
points, 2 field goals,
Yeah.
one on each side. Nobody scored. And the thing is
Exactly.
like it they could have scored. Like what's his name? Zay Flowers should have scored.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
and
seriously.
then the Chiefs could have scored. Like there were so many opportunities to score. They just
Mhm.
didn't. like it just didn't. I don't know if that's just really good defense. I mean, or just the inability to finish. It was really weird. But I mean, you did mention Rashid Rice. He's been really good this year. I mean, a solid wide receiver out of, I believe he was out of SMU. Just a
Second
really
round
good pick by them. And I will say, because, and I am 100% a part of the group that slandered, if you may say, Valdez Scantling.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, man, when he made probably the two biggest catches in the Bills game and in this game against the Ravens, I can't remember, it was MVS just in that final quarter, or if was it a touchdown drive for against the Bills?
It was, they scored points on that drive. Whether I can't remember specifically if it was a touchdown.
And I mean,
or
that game was
goal,
close, so that was a big catch over the shoulder.
That catch
and then
mattered.
you have the Ravens game on that was third down, and if he didn't catch that, it's they're giving the ball over, and the Ravens have a chance to score. And I mean, that was huge. But which we'll talk about later on, eventually after the Super Bowl. But they need to get Patrick Mahomes more help, in my opinion, and especially if this is Travis Kelce's final game, the Super Bowl, which I'm going to cherish. I love Travis Kelce. Put aside the Taylor Swift stuff. I love Travis Kelce and what he's been able to do. He's unbelievable. I put him there as the best tight end of all time. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, if he wins this Super Bowl, he has as many as Gronk, which, like, Super Bowls was a big thing, a part of that conversation. I think he runs away with it. But yeah, I'm cherishing this Super Bowl with possibly Travis Kelce's final game.
So this is completely off topic, but what do you think about Andy Reid too? Do you think that's another? Because I agree with you. I think that there's definitely a chance if he wins this Super Bowl, with everything that's gone on this year, with the adversity that they've had to overcome, winning a Super Bowl, going out on top. I think he probably, my guess is he probably has to see what his brother went through, seeing how, obviously his brother wasn't able to win, but I'm sure his brother would have rather gone out last year. Possibly. You never know, but you're
talking about Jason?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I mean, Andy Reid, I just don't. If he wins another Super Bowl, I don't think he has anything left to prove.
Right.
Unless he wants to go and try to match Belichick, and then put him up there in the conversation as one of the best ever. But
he already is. I mean, he definitely already is. So
and the thing is like, it's been talked about, thrown around. Does Bill Belichick take over if Reid does retire? And I would hate that move for the Chiefs, but I'd also hate that move for Belichick, because it's just there's already questions around Belichick's ability to win without Brady.
Yep.
And if he were to win a Super Bowl with Mahomes, I feel like it just doesn't help. Because he won before Belichick came, and if he wins with Belichick, it really doesn't add to anything. That's how I feel.
I don't
know. Maybe Reid does retire. I mean, he's getting up there in age. He's not Belichick age yet, but I mean, he's had a great career, and I don't know if he's already a Hall of Famer. I don't know how that works with coaches, but he'll sure.
He will, but I mean, he will be. He's not yet, but I think what you said is true. It's interesting because part of me feels like we would have heard something about him, and I know like people have been talking, but it hasn't been like, there haven't been rumors from like a Schefter or an Ian Rappaport or anything like that to where there's to where I put like any real stock in it, but I don't see. I see it as a possibility where, you win a Super Bowl, you win back-to-back Super Bowls, you've done just about everything you can in a career. I don't see Andy Reid being a guy like Bill Belichick where, he feels the need to go for any sort of record. And that's no slight on Bill Belichick. I just think kind of like exactly what you said. I think Belichick still has something to prove, which is that he can win without Tom Brady. Whether he believes that or you know what I mean? Like, I think, and to your point about him coming in to take over the Chiefs, I agree. He's going from Tom Brady to the next Tom Brady. You know what I mean?
Literally.
It's just, yeah. But
I will say with Reid is like, what would be really cool to end on, and I think Belichick wouldn't have this on him. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But he'd have back-to-back Super Bowls, which Belichick, I don't believe ever did. Or did he in the early 2000s?
He did I believe he did in the early 2000s.
Because I know they won, 03?
I think 02
and then 06?
It was either
something around
I think
that time.
03 and 04, Belichick and Brady, but I could be wrong there.
Listen, I can't imagine a world like where Mahomes it would happen, but like if Reed and Kelsey left, it is just Mahomes.
Oh
like,
yeah,
the era is I'm not saying the dynasty's over, but that era of the Mahomes, Kelsey, Reed, like they'd be sad to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it's true, and I mean a lot of people talk like there's no knock. This is no knock on Patrick Mahomes at all, but like since he's been in the league, he's had arguably one of the greatest head coaches of all time, the best tight end of all time. He did have one of the more talented wide receivers we've ever seen for a couple years, a Hall of Famer. That's 3 Hall of Famers right there. It would be a challenge for him for sure, but clearly, if we've seen anything, he can overcome challenges, but that would be something else.
Other than that Super Bowl against the Buccaneers, Mahomes has been blessed with an amazing offensive line every single year. I mean, they're unbelievable this year. Well, actually, honestly, and I will say, I don't remember the last.
This was their worst year. This might have been
on the offensive line.
Yeah,
well, I was just about to say
at the tackle position.
Oh my! The amount of penalties on their offensive line is honestly ridiculous this year. It is so hard to watch.
Jawan Taylor was the highest penalized player in the league this year.
Unbelievable. The amount of times he's lined off sides this year or been false start holding.
Oh yeah,
unbelievable.
Yeah.
But in terms of, I don't know, he's got some real talent on the offensive line. Thuney's really good. Algoretti, former Illinois guy, stepped up big against the Ravens in this last game.
Mm-hmm.
He's had a lot of talent. Sometimes
Trey Smith is great. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and last year they had Orlando Brown. So went to the Bengals. Really good. But then I will bring up, because we didn't really get into it yet, is the Ravens side of things. Kind of what went wrong with them. Like, Lamar threw a big interception at the end into the end zone. I could argue there was pass interference on that.
Oh, it was.
I thought that he was pushed before, and maybe it's legal.
It was definitely pass interference. Yeah, definitely pass interference. But he also threw the ball into triple coverage. Don't do that.
100%. That's on him. There's so many guys right there.
Yeah.
But man, where did it go wrong? The Ravens are so good offensively, defensively. I think something that really killed them too, not having Marlon Humphreys, that sucks.
Yep, that was tough.
He's their top. Well, Kyle Hamilton's really good at safety position, but
he is
Marlon
so
Humphreys
good.
at the cornerback position, unbelievable. I mean, he's probably an All-Pro this year, if not up there.
Mm-hmm.
Not having them was tough, and it's the running back by committee worked, but it didn't work effectively against the Chiefs. When you got a defensive line like that,
the interesting thing to look at here in that game too is this. I don't know if you've heard this number. If you had to guess how many times Lamar Jackson handed the ball off to a running back in that game total, what would your guess be?
Does he count?
No, he doesn't count. This is just strictly handing the ball off to a running back.
Well, I feel like they were losing for a lot of the game, so I'd say probably 13 times maybe.
They handed the ball off to a running back 6 times.
Yeah.
6 times total.
And their running back group,
they are the number 1 rushing team in the NFL, and they handed the ball off 6 times. What are you doing, Todd Monken?
What's so great about them is it's a different guy every game.
Yeah.
Whether it was, is it Keaton Mitchell?
Keaton Mitchell. Yeah.
Keaton Mitchell.
Yeah.
He was good until he tore his ACL, and then
Justice Hill.
One game, Hill would have a great game.
Yeah.
Edwards would have a great game. Cook had some good runs last week against.
He did have a couple good runs against the Texans. Yeah, he did.
He came in. He played one game, but I mean.
But why do you sign Dalvin Cook? You signed Dalvin Cook for a game like this. Why even sign him if you're not going to use him? I don't get it. Yeah. It made no sense to me.
And then, the rookie mistake.
Oh,
I don't blame him in any way. But man, Zay Flowers, that taunting penalty. I mean, the game could have changed. Like,
that,
I don't
yeah.
blame him, but like, you can't do that. It backed you up 10 yards, and then 3 plays later, he fumbled in the 1 yard. I don't blame the fumble on him. I mean, that happens. I think Snead knocked it out on
Yeah,
the
he did.
corner this year.
And he's the
But
guy
like
who Zay
things,
Flowers taunted too. So it was,
exactly. I
yeah.
mean, talk about like,
Hmm.
what's the word? Like, not karma, I guess. I
Yeah,
guess
no, it
karma
is
works.
definitely
But
karma,
like, man, like storybook right there in terms of just getting him back. But like
dude.
things could have
Yeah.
been so different. Like he scores, I think a 3 point game,
Hmm.
and man, things could have been different. I
Well,
mean,
so
everything just stopped after that
yeah,
happened.
you know the crazy thing too about that is, and I think this gets overlooked a little bit is, and I think to go back to your question just about what went wrong for the Raiders in that game, it was a multitude of things, but the thing that did not go wrong was the defense. And
Mhm.
just to get that out of the way right now, the defense after the first quarter allowed 3 points, and
Yeah. Oh, they were unbelievable in the second half.
they had 7 stops throughout the course of
Hmm.
that game. That is more than enough when you only give
Oh,
up
of course.
17 points. When you have the number one offense statistically, I think in points per game in
Oh,
football,
probably.
that should be enough to win the game. Now, what went wrong? I think the offensive plan, first of all, that Todd Monken brought into the game, it just it wasn't the right plan. That
Hmm.
like why, and obviously this is something we're gonna touch on, but it's like you look at someone like Dan Campbell, who literally the Lions died by what got them to that point.
Oh,
And I
100%.
think you can criticize that however you want, but when you are the number one rushing team in the NFL and you have the number one rushing quarterback in the NFL,
Hmm.
why are you not leaning into that? And I think what I saw in that game from Lamar Jackson, because he played horribly. He played horribly. There's no other way
Hmm.
around it. He was playing as though he was trying he played like he was trying to prove people wrong that he can't play in the pocket. He was trying to
Oh,
play in
definitely.
the pocket, and
And
Spagnuolo was
he.
sending blitz after blitz after blitz, and he
Hmm.
had nowhere to go. But then, when it got late, when it was getting into late in the third quarter and fourth quarter, not only he's starting to scramble, but he's not scramble. There's nowhere to scramble to. At that point, you have
Hmm.
to have the wherewithal to throw the ball away, or to you gotta, I don't know, you gotta find someone on an underneath route or something like that. And he was just chewing up so much clock, running backwards and taking. He took
Yeah.
4 sacks in that game. It was just tough to watch, man.
And man, I'll tell you, like maybe it's because of his injury, he wasn't moving as quick.
Sure.
But the inability, no, not Lamar, the inability to throw to one of the best tight ends in the league,
Oh yeah.
2 targets
Mm-hmm.
for 15 yards. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, you got to be better. Mark Andrews might have been the best tight end in football this year up until his injury. He was
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
unbelievable. I mean, the amount of touchdowns, just the yards, he was having a phenomenal year. Throw
Yep.
to him. Like you're targeting Justice Hill more than you're targeting your tight end. You're targeting Odell Beckham. Like Mark Andrews is so good. Throw it to him. Take a risk. I don't care.
Yeah.
Mark Andrews is going to make the play. He's so big. He's bigger than half the linebackers
Yeah.
that the Chiefs have.
He's
The
a
Chiefs
monster.
also dealt with defensive injuries at that linebacker or D line
Willie
position
Gay was
during
hurt.
the game.
Yep.
They lost
Mm-hmm.
like 2 or 3 defensive linemen / linebackers in that game.
Yeah.
Like, and the tight ends usually covered by the linebacker or depending on a slot corner. Yeah, them not targeting Mark Andrews, just that. And I wonder, like, going into the offseason, like, is this offense built to run it back and, like, have success? Because I think Odell's getting older. I do really like Isaiah Likely, but also a 2 tight end system doesn't really work.
Everybody,
in the
well,
NFL.
that's the thing.
Like,
Everybody runs a 2 tight end set now. You got to do it because everybody's running 3 safeties, 2 safeties.
Yeah.
Like you got
but
to
like
run
effectively
2
to get
tight
them
ends.
both.
It's tough.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's tough when you
So
have a
that's-
Lamar Jackson because you don't want to. It's the same. You don't want to take the ball out of his hands, but at the same time, it's like I totally agree with what you're saying, and it almost to me with to your point about Mark Andrews. it almost seemed like him getting back in the mix kind of screwed up whatever they had going offensively.
I mean, it could have.
You know what I mean? Where they're like, okay, great, we got Mark Andrews back. Shit, what do we do? like that's what it's.
And you would think like maybe it would open up their offense because they're maybe double teaming Andrews, but it just wasn't the case.
They didn't have to. They didn't have to. The only person who could get separation was Zay Flowers, and that it goes back to he is so fast.
Fast.
And that's the thing that I think gets overlooked, and it'll come to a larger point that I want to make here and to kind of close out this game. But that throw to Zay Flowers, the one that he got the taunting penalty on. If you watch that back, if you hit him in stride, that's a touchdown, and Snead never even catches up to him. That ball was horrendously underthrown. You could see he stopped and waited for 3 or 4 beats for that ball to get to him before he could finally and still almost made Snead miss. But you look at that, and it's like it was the lack of execution from Lamar, where I agree. Yes, he still got a pass to him, to get to the goal line, and he fumbled, but you had it's never just one play. It's the same. You could say that in every game. That pass, you should have hit him in stride, and that should have been a touchdown.
Oh yeah.